Hello, Johnny London here once again. Well, today I've got the pleasurable task of putting the new tap on, and the old waste and the old sink, which is just over there having a bit of a clean up at the moment. This is all done. I gave this a few coats of nice satin varnish and it's come up all right. So let's crack on with the good stuff. The height of the tap is close to being an issue, so when I fit it, I'll leave the base washer off. I pass the flexi tails through from underneath and attach them to the tap. The tap's fine without the base washer. And it tightens up from underneath like this. Only thing is, I'm not quite sure which one is the hot and which one is the cold of the pipes on the tap, or of the pipes under there. Now under there I can work that out. If you touch them, usually the cold one is a bit colder anyway, even at this time of year, or I can trace them back. But for finding out which pipe is which on here, I'm not sure if it goes sort of pipe on the left is hot because hot's on the left, or if the mechanism kind of works counterintuitively in there. But what I can do is I can look on the quality bathroom instructions. That should tell me, shouldn't it? Then again, I could just guess. Guessing completed. I tighten the flexi ends onto the pipes. But I've hit a snag. Oh, bloody old valve stock. Oh, you're kidding me. The valve on one of the isolators is stuck. Well, in the end, I managed to turn that valve, but it did involve contorting myself into some very uncomfortable positions. And this is a gripe I have, particularly with things like plumbing, things that don't do what they're supposed to do. That's a new valve. I've never actually fitted it really to anything before. It's just been kicking around in the toolbox. And already it's seized up, and it's a good quality full bore valve, so it really shouldn't have done that, but it's on now. And so I've got all the water for the tap, just got that in place so I can give it a little test. And really I'll just sort of leave it off to test it actually, because that way there's more pressure in the pipes and I can just check for any weeps. If you get a little weep, just give something, you know, 1/6 of a turn on the nut to tighten it up, and usually that'll fix it. Unfortunately, if it makes it worse, then you'll have to take the joint off again and redo it all, because you probably either cross-threaded something or, you know, something like that. But I'm glad that's done. And of course the next thing is to fit the sink and the waste. They're all nice and neat, and as you can see, I've labelled the hot pipe. Looking good. Now let's have a look at that basin waste. Now I've changed the waste on this sink once or twice before. They only last a few years, these things. And the critical thing with this one is the slit in the waste fitment has to be not too far down the thread and not too, well, it won't be too high, but it has to be not too far down. So whenever I buy one, this one came with the tap, believe it or not. I got the tap, the tails and this all for a tenner. Mind you, it is made out of tin foil by the sounds of it, but it was, you know, I was doing it to rent the place again, and in the end I'm here now. So but luckily this one will do, because if I show you on the sink, I don't know if you can see, yes, you can just about make out the slit there where my finger is. So obviously you've got a certain depth to play with there, and the slit on the corresponding fitting has to be sort of within that, because obviously then underneath you clamp up, and otherwise if the hole's lower, then obviously the water's just going to come pouring out, isn't it? But it's just a little tricky thing with this particular sink that I always have to look out for whenever I change the waste on it. I set to work. Nice floor then. Oh, I know why. It's to give it something to slip against when you tighten it up. Is it? No. What's that for? Oh, there's bits everywhere. No, I can't be right. No. A bit of silicone for good measure. Tight, but not too tight. Now you shouldn't really need any silicone on there, but I always put a bit. A lot of people put it on the inside of the waste fitting as well, but that actually won't do anything. If any water gets past the inside of the waste fitting, it will still go down into the bit where the water comes through from the overflow anyway, and that's all got to be sealed. So this will do. We'll give that a little while to dry off, and in the meantime I can offer up the waste and, you know, get all that into place. But I soon hit another snag. It turns out the waste is a European sized fitting. A quick trip to Screwfix. And I try an adapter which is about as much use as a chocolate teapot. And so there's only one option. I dismantle everything. It's another trip to Screwfix for a new waste. And this is the chainsaw, which should last. I check to see that it fits, which is what I should have done before. Perfect. I use my own seal here. And the two that came with it I put on the bottom. They were rather flimsy, so lashings of silicone. Then I tighten things up, just so. With extra silicone, for good measure. And then some. I put this one back in its box for another time. Let's get the basin set in place. Definitely not supposed to do that, but it's an old seal, so just a matter of connecting the waste pipe now. With the plumbing out of the way, I set about putting everything back together. Aren't I glad I used screws and not nails? The freshly painted panel is a snug fit, but it goes on in the end. On with the access cover. And for today, that's where we'll leave it.